Recording is on.
Okay, here we are. So this is Learning Bitcoin and Design. I think it's call number 9 in this series. And today we'll focus on accessibility testing, a hands-on workshop, and it's going to be a little bit chaotic, probably. I will do my best to lead this, but I'm not an expert. And so how about we first start this call here? Well, first saying thanks to everyone who tuned in by asking, Mo, I already know what testing you have done. Jason, I know you're an expert, but maybe Steve and Millie, how familiar are you with the accessibility in general and mobile accessibility testing in specific?
Do you want to go ahead, Steven? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I've been pretty familiar with the concept of accessibility testing. I mean, I've been doing web development since 2009. So yeah, I mean, I've always been familiar with the general gist of it, like labeling buttons and alt text and stuff like that. I don't know that I know all of the finer points, but I know the basic gist of it. But I'd say I'm much more I'm much better at accessibility testing on a desktop or a laptop, and I really don't have any experience doing it on mobile.
Yeah, I would say the same too. Like, I understand like the general concept of it, but I know there's like different depths to it. Like, I don't think I mean, I never done accessibility, for example, for someone that doesn't hear, and all that. It was pretty like on the basic level, I would say.
Yeah, and Jason, you're a pro, right? But you said you haven't done any mobile testing in a year or so, right?
I hate the term expert or pro, but yeah, I mean, pro is a little bit better, I guess. But yeah, I've been doing accessibility testing for about 12 years now. But mobile testing is always something that is unique and evolving. And I guess there's some principles there that are kind of timeless. But about a year since I've done any mobile testing, so there may be some new tools and some new resources out there, but really it's just leveraging the accessibility settings within the operating system and ensuring that everything is labeled, everything is accessible with a switch control or an input like a keyboard, ensuring that you have a logical focus order, that you have all the interactive elements labeled and things like that. So if you catch all those low-hanging fruit items, it's going to go a long way.
Yeah, and that was going to be my starting point and focus of today too. So here in my background is the work in progress accessibility page that we're working on, or Mo and I have been working on. And so you see a few screens here, and they basically, those little, you see these screens and there are these little overlays here. And in iOS, you can enable, hey Felix, thanks for joining. We're just about to kick things off here. So these little overlays here, iOS can actually put those on your screen, and they indicate what a screen reader knows about a particular element. So a problem is just, so in the second screen, you see here, like the screen is blacked out. So a person who relies on a screen reader cannot see anything, of course, and they just have to live with whatever information is provided in these little overlays, pretty much simplifying a little bit. So if a button is just called button, they don't know what it does, right? And then, they kind of have to randomly click around and just kind of hopefully figure out what works. That's one of the issues. Another big breaker is also something I found in the Breeze app. There was one modal that I couldn't close because there was no close button. You had to double tap somewhere to close it, but it was not made available to a screen reader. So, you're stuck as a user. So that's pretty much just what I would try to set up today. So everybody have a phone ready that they can use for testing?
Yes.
iOS or Android?
That's supposed to be my next question. What do you have available?
I have iOS.
iOS?
Yes, I'm here, iOS.
Any Androiders? Android
Yes.
onlys? iOS? Okay. So it's actually really straightforward. You probably can't see this. I need to make myself a little bit bigger here. Let's get rid of this background. And so navigate to your phone and get into the settings app. And scroll down a little bit and you should see accessibility. So one of the first things, one of the most important things is with this testing, you want to be able to turn it on and off really quickly. And the iOS has a shortcut for that. And that shortcut allows you, when you click the side button 3 times, then a little menu slides up from the bottom. And then you can just say, you know, like what accessibility features you want to enable or disable. So that's one of the first things to set up. And that is all the way at the bottom. There's an option called accessibility shortcut down here.
Okay.
So you want that one on, and you know, it says triple click the side button for, and I have enabled the main things that we'll use is just voice control and voiceover, but you can also try increase contrast or some of the other ones, color filters, anything else. But voice control and voiceover are kind of the basic ones now. So once you have that on, just triple click that side button and you should see a menu like this slide up. Yeah, cool.
Let's see. Okay, it worked.
Cool. And now to the next thing. Do you have a Lightning wallet or a Bitcoin wallet you'd like to test?
Yes.
Cool. What do you have available?
Most of them, but I think I want to test Zeus.
Zeus?
Yeah.
Okay. I did test Zeus. Sorry, Bosch and Evan, but there are some issues that I saw. I already warned Bosch about it earlier.
You want me to
So,
test another one? Like maybe I could do Phoenix or something.
either way is fine, but does it, Mo, Millie, Felix, do you have a wallet you want to test or some other application?
I would try Moon to see.
Mm-hmm.
I have Blue Wallet, but I
have Moon
always
on my phone too.
have problems connecting to my Umbrel node. So I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah, you don't need to do much. It's really just, you know, clicking through some of the main screens and then just seeing what happens. I mean, the main thing to look at that it'll probably do, well, a good thing is always to go through onboarding, set up an app from scratch and just enable these features and then just kind of see if you get stuck anywhere. One thing that Mo and I tested early on was blockchain.com, and it's pretty, and it's, sorry if you're listening, people, it's pretty bad. It's lots of things mislabeled. But okay, so I'll just open up Blue Wallet. Hopefully I'm not, actually let me pick a wallet that I barely use here, so I don't accidentally show anything here. I have about 5 million wallets here on this phone, just need to find one. There's one here called Unstoppable.
Maybe it's better for the wallet developers and UX designers that we don't mention the name of the wallet that we're individually testing, or
I mean, no, we're doing this testing anyways.
Yeah.
Right? And actually here we already have some of our results.
yeah.
And it's not like we're actually trying to, so the
Help.
goal is always to find things that need fixing and then go to the project and file an issue and then they can fix it.
Yeah.
That's kind of a positive intent. So then what I do is, you know, I'll press my buttons here and then I usually just turn on voice control.
Okay.
And then I do it again, I turn on voiceover. And then you should already see these, actually, that's something that I forgot, sorry. Go back to turn things back off. I forgot one thing in the settings, and that is exactly enabling those little labels. And for that, you have to go to where was this option? Okay, go back into voice control and find the option overlays at the bottom. And in overlay, enable item names.
Sorry, Christoph, can you repeat?
So you're in accessibility, in voice control, and then you scroll down and you find an option that's called continuous overlay.
Okay, yeah.
And then you want to make sure that says item names.
That works. Right.
And that's then when you have voice control on and you don't interact with the app, then it shows you all these little labels, and then you can visually see what the screen reader actually knows about this application.
That's a really good tip.
So I just had a fun adventure there while I was on mute there.
Okay.
I think I turned on voice control and voiceover like right as you were saying, oh wait, there's one other thing we forgot.
Yeah.
And my phone was completely locked to where any tapping that I would do wouldn't actually do anything.
Ah, okay.
But I figured it out. I figured out I had to listen to what it was telling me, and it was like, try tap cancel. And then I was like, okay, so now I have to control it with my voice to get it to turn the features off.
Yeah.
Okay, so I missed everything you were saying. I'm sorry.
Oh, good. Well, sorry for that mix-up.
It's all good. It's kind of funny.
Did you enable those item names here at the bottom? This overlay.
Okay, overlay item names. So I need to
That
go
is
back
in accessibility, voice control.
Okay, accessibility, and then there is. Let me just find that. Voiceover, zoom, display, motion, spin, content, line description, touch, face ID, voice control. And then I need to go to overlay, and then item
names. Yeah.
Got it. Item names. Okay.
You can also, if you do different testing, you can use item numbers, and then that shows you in which order things are selectable. Like when you tap through them or navigate left, right, up, down through them, in which order they will be selected.
So just to prepare myself, when we do re-enable voice control, we're only going to be able to control the phone with our voice.
Not exactly. So on my testing, I haven't done that, but I can try to show that real quick. So so before you do anything, I'll just try to do it here. So I enable voice control, and I'll enable voice over. And now, I see all these little highlights here, and you can tell there's selection around this icon at the top. And now I swipe left and right to navigate. That's pretty much the equivalent of tabbing when you're doing web-based accessibility testing. Like you just linearly go through whatever options the screen reader has identified. And then it will also read those out to you so whatever you select, it will be read out.
Yeah, 2-finger swipe to the right should be like using the tab key on a keyboard.
Yeah. And then whatever selected, you tap it once. I think it will just read it out again, and double tap will select it.
Double tap. That's what I was missing.
Yeah, and you can still tap around with your fingers to if you don't want to go through that order, but just using that, maybe closing your eyes or whatever you want to do, is a pretty good starting point. So hold on, my audio here is off.
Voiceover on. NFT 24. Try. $0 balance. $0 balance. $0 balance. $0 balance.
Yeah, I seem to be stuck here in some type of loop where I just keep sliding over and I keep going back and forth between the same two elements. And then you can kind of see, at the top here it says switch wallet 24. That's not really helpful here. The filter icons called manage 220. Not really helpful. So yeah, feel free to just swipe around a little bit. Have you found it? Anything so far?
I'm still trying to parse what I'm seeing here.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, it seems like there's pretty good labels. I'm on Phoenix Wallet right now, and it's just kind of my, like, screwing around wallet that I use for hackathons and stuff.
Yeah.
So it seemed,
Christoph, I don't quite
Mhm.
remember, for the overlays, I've activated the setting. Was there an additional step that we had to do when we go into the screen state to actually see those overlays?
Did you triple click and enable voiceover and voice control?
Let me go ahead and do that. Okay, let me just enable.
So here's kind of an issue that I've found in this application. I can expand these little these wallets here, but then I can't actually get into them. The buttons inside them are inaccessible, and I keep getting stuck in this loop up here. There's something up with the selection here. Yeah. So this wallet makes send and receive inaccessible to somebody who relies on a screen reader. So the app's basically useless.
And it sounds like you have a gesture trap there, right? So you can't cycle out of that menu.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, it sounds
Lots of
like you have
voices speaking here right now. Yeah.
sounds like you have a gesture trap where you cannot cycle out of that menu. Is that correct?
Yeah, so there are two elements where it keeps going back and forth, and then there's an expandable element, and I can expand it and control it and collapse it, but inside of it there are three buttons, and I can't get to them. It just won't
Yeah.
let me dig into that. Is that what you mean by gesture trap?
I would just mean kind of like a keyboard trap where you get
Yeah.
into a menu and you cannot get out, right? Like you tab into it and you cannot tab out, or you do a two-finger swipe to the right and then you cannot do a two-finger swipe to the left to get back out of it. But it sounds like you have the opposite. It sounds like you cannot just get into the menu at all.
Now there's some weird behavior where when I go in a certain direction, it just keeps going back and forth between the same two elements. And then this expandable menu, that's a whole other issue on this screen.
Yeah.
So that makes the app, super very much
Not very
really
useful to
difficult to
somebody with
use.
a visual disability.
Yeah.
Jason or Christoph, there was a shortcut for VoiceOver where it will read out all of the text on the screen to you. I don't remember what that shortcut was. Was it swipe two fingers down or tap two down or?
I sent the list here. Let's see here. Speak the entire screen from the selected item is two-finger swipe down.
Two fingers swipe down. Okay.
Yeah. And I put the list of the gestures in the chat. So if you want to save that for later, that could be really useful.
Yeah.
yeah, I keep having these issues on Phoenix where I keep getting stuck in, like, I'm looking at the transaction list here on my screen, and it's all filled with fake license plates because it was during that Shock the Web hackathon that I was using at last. But I keep getting stuck in my transaction list where I'm like, I cycle through and it just wants to. I've got transaction lists going way off the phone screen, but when I swipe right, it only wants to cycle to the transactions that are visible on the screen, and then it wants to return back to the top transaction, and I don't have a way to get out of there. But it might be that if I read this Apple document and I learn more of these gestures, maybe there's a way to get out of there. Maybe I need to be doing the two-finger swipe left to move out of the group of items.
Yes, that's what you should try first.
Okay. Two-finger.
Okay, so maybe that was also my problem here.
And then if you see with the QR code, and if you try double tap.
Yeah, it's stuck. If I two-finger swipe left, it won't leave the transaction list. It gives me like a little haptic feedback.
You hear nothing for the QR code, so it's literally just
So it's the
selected Bitcoin.
image without any alternative text or text
Yeah,
alternative.
there's no text for that.
Selected. Bitcoin.
Millie, how are you doing there? Millie does not look happy.
Empty.
Yeah, I mean, it's so confusing to me. Like, I'm going a little bit
Yeah.
insane with the voice, especially.
Yeah.
It's funny, but I think there is some gesture that I didn't learn. And
Mhm.
also, I don't know why. Maybe it's just me, Mole, if you can confirm with me on Moon, but like, sometimes I just like swipe right to select the other button, but then it tells me like all the buttons that they are, which, I mean, I just wanted to know like what that button is, but yeah.
So you swipe to the right just with your two fingers, one swipe.
Suggested command. Copy.
Ooh.
I swiped
Yeah, so-
with one finger to the right.
Yeah, one finger should select the next item. Two fingers should select the next group of items.
5P37 Pi accent 9800
Yeah.
FB9GQ.
I'll try again.
Checks K0C8CMH326.
Oh,
Yeah,
this
Moon
this is really interesting. You swipe right, and then you get the QR code. Listen to that. Wait, is it?
BC1Q4S7N20 Pi Gate CZL5P37.
No, that's a
Exactly.
SegWit address right there.
CH326SL36XKT.
Is that Elon Musk's next child's name or something?
It is.
Yeah.
least that
No,
one becomes the
Moon is interesting. There's generally it's good, but there's this little arrow here at the bottom to access your transaction list. It is not selectable, so you cannot select your transaction list or get there.
Tab set. Flash. Wrench. 6.98.
With the Blue Wallet, you have to scroll through all your transactions you ever done. So like to receive or to scan or to send every single time. So
Oh,
would get
there's
annoying at some point.
Oh, yeah. So you're saying you go from top to bottom, and then you have to tap through all of the transactions in order to get to the bottom navigation.
Exactly, yeah. And
Okay.
for Blixt Wallet, even though the receive and send buttons are also on the bottom, like almost any app, they actually put it in the list as like the number one and number second item. So you immediately select it once you open the app, which is quite cool.
That's probably where this group of items logic here is helpful, where the transactions are a group, and then you can just say, I want to go into that group or I want to get out of that group. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, Moon, the QR code's also not selectable. And one thing you'll also notice with all of this QR code stuff, it's pretty important to provide alternate options. So if somebody can't use the QR code, that they can just press a share button or share a copy button. And with the copy button problem, sometimes I've seen is that you tap it, just double tap it, and then there's no reaction. Like it doesn't tell you, address copy to clipboard or something like that. I've also seen it where like a little toast shows up that has the text, but it doesn't announce it. So if you're just relying on the screen reader, and so you just can't tell what actually happened. Yeah, so those are the basics of that. One thing I found interesting, there was a video I watched, also a accessibility testing professional who must spend most of his time on mobile. He has set up these NFC tags and programmed them in a way where he has a bunch of tags, and if he wants to enable or disable certain accessibility features, he just holds the phone next to some of these tags. And that way he can really quickly switch between those different configurations for his testing. Initially, when he set it up, I was like, what the hell are you doing? But it actually makes a ton of sense if you just want to quickly, if you have like 10 different combinations of, I don't know, color blindness or switch controls or whatever it is, you just want to go through them quickly, you just hold your phone to one of those NFC tags. That was a cool technique.
Yeah, so this is really interesting. I'm going to have to play with this more on my own time, because it's kind of weird hearing the phone read things to me, and also, um, people on the call discussing things. It's hard for me to like parse what's going on. I think I get the basic gist of this, and to really learn it deeply, I think I'll have to study that Apple document and like learn all the gestures and all that stuff. Um, but when I have
Yeah.
voice control on, am I supposed to be able to control the phone by speaking to it? That's what I'm confused about.
Yeah, I believe so, because voice control should be speech to text.
Okay, and voiceover is just the feature that actually has the phone read it out to you and all that kind of
Correct.
stuff.
Yeah, that's text to speech. Yep.
It kept saying to me like, try tap send, try tap receive, and I was earlier when I had my little misadventure, I was able to get that to work, but for some reason I wasn't able to get that to work when I was using Phoenix Wallet. I would say try this button, try that button, and it wouldn't really do anything. And I'm not sure if that's because the phone was trying to speak at the same time I was speaking. So I just need to learn it deeper. But one issue that I can definitely file with Phoenix right away is they have two buttons in the upper left hand corner of the screen. One is um, one is like a lightning icon, and then the other one is like a wrench icon. And so the lightning icon is supposed to show you like your network status, like if you're connected to the network, and the wrench icon is supposed to be like your settings menu and all that stuff. But they have the buttons labeled as like wrench and zap, or no, flash and wrench. So it's like, so I think we need to get those buttons updated so that it says something more like, yes, it is a wrench icon, but it really should say something like try tap settings menu instead of try tap wrench.
And could be coming from an image file as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like I think that that in the code they're just typing in like, oh well, it's a wrench icon, so the alt text should say wrench, but like really it should say the function of that button.
Yeah, and if they're not labeled, sometimes the assistive technology will try to figure out what it is and will use the file name, right?
Gotcha.
I was just about to ask that. Is it the image file name?
Change pen, just button.
Everything is a button.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Moon 2, it was a little bit like that.
So Jason, sometimes the images, the alt text will be actually the image file name.
That's correct. I mean, well, the assistive technology will try to decipher what the image is, especially if it's like a negative image. And if there's just a file name there and there's no text alternative, then it may just use that file name as the name for that image.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So just a couple of things that I found interesting for Android also is, I mean, if you don't have Android, there's not a huge point in going over the setup here. But I found interesting that you can enable a little accessibility menu here in the corner that also allows you to basically do the same thing. You just get a list of things you can turn on and off. And the other thing is that you'll notice this little blue checkbox. So this is an app called Accessibility Scanner, Accessibility Checker that's provided by Google. You can install it and you can give it access and to basically analyze. It has full access to the application interface. And then when you press it, you can just say record or snapshot. I'm going to do a snapshot here. And then it will take a snapshot and it'll mark it all up and highlight potential problems in here. And then you can, you can tap each one and it'll tell you, consider making this larger, or this one doesn't have a label. Like there's no label to this button. So that's pretty handy. And that illustrates another thing here that I found in a good bunch of apps. So you see that each of those items here in the list has multiple tap targets inside of it. I've seen a bunch of different applications where it's just like every little icon was its own selectable thing, but it didn't really have a name and you couldn't do anything with it. So you just kind of selected, toggle through all of these kind of useless well, visual elements, but to you, basically, they're useless because there's no information. So that whole grouping things logically also seems to be kind of a common thing. And then, yeah, I think that's kind of it for Android. I didn't dig a ton deeper, but these two things I thought were also really helpful. And I don't know if this does anything with color or other issues. Like that, those are kind of the basics that I've been looking at. Yeah, so far, any questions, any other thoughts, anything you'd like to check out?
Yeah, I would suggest playing around with TalkBack in Android and using the Explore by Touch functionality there, where you can just kind of roam your finger around the screen and it will read out the labels of everything that your finger is touching.
Is that a common way to explore, to find out what's on the screen, to roam around? It seems.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that was part of TalkBack from the beginning, or at least for several years now. It looks like VoiceOver now has that option, but you have to enable it. But yeah, that's one way that you can kind of roam around the screen and kind of see what things might be labeled. But I like that hack that you gave with the voice control to see the labels. That's pretty cool.
Jason, how would you do some testing for trying to see an app through the perspective of someone who's mentally disabled?
Yeah, cognitive disabilities are really difficult. I would say there's so much nuance there that I'm not an expert in cognitive disabilities, but I always just look at good usability practices, you know, try to ensure that things are perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. Try to minimize the cognitive load of people with disabilities because, you know, a lot of times folks that are using a screen reader are going to have to memorize like where things are on the UI as they're listening to the page. And so they're getting new information as they're trying to, you know, process some information that's being stored in their memory at the same time. So that can be, you know, kind of cognitive load challenge. So yeah, so cognitive disabilities are really, they're all over the place, right? I've done testing with folks that have memory disabilities where they might not remember anything after 5 seconds, right? Unless it's in their long-term memory. And so testing these people is really interesting because, you know, they look at the page, they understand what's going on, they start performing a task, and then they forget what they're doing, right? And so then they have to like remind themselves what they're doing. And if it's not very clear and intuitive on the page, you know, where they're at in their current task, they won't be able to complete the task. So, and that's one thing to consider.
Yep, thanks.
In Germany, there's a government websites typically have this. There's a common concept of, they call it simple language, which gets, some people debate that, whether that's kind of discriminating or whatever, like, oh, is it for stupid people or you know, but that is also an interesting thing where you try to provide a simplified version for a simpler vocabulary. That's kind of an easy target, right? You use simpler words or simpler sentences, but then which concepts do you need to simplify and how can you simplify them? I feel like that's also kind of a tricky aspect.
In Word, you can do a quick test using the Flesch-Kincaid reading ease scale. So you can enable that in Microsoft Word, and then you can paste a paragraph of text and test it real quickly, and it'll tell you what the grade level is. And a good rule of thumb there, if you're trying to get that to a level that is good for cognitive disabilities, is to have it below a 7th grade reading ease level.
Sorry, Jason, could you send the link to that testing one, the one that you just mentioned, please?
The Flesch-Kincaid reading ease?
Yeah.
I can find one, sure.
Yeah, what I have in the background here has basically, I've used that sometimes. It's called HemingwayApp.com. It does the same thing. It gives this readability level. And I just copy pasted text from our accessibility PR in here. So we're not making it easy here in some of these things.
We do not want to do that for the rest of the Bitcoin design guide. That's a
Well-
full-time job right there.
Yeah, and a
Well,
lot of those checkers, those automated checkers are kind of flawed. So if you have a lot of domain-specific language in them in your content, you probably want to remove that or make it more generic before you paste it in there. Sometimes that can throw it off quite a bit.
Yeah, I think we also need to keep in mind who the audience for the guide is. They're typically, they're most likely people either that are already pretty savvy or that are very interested in being savvy, either around the topic of Bitcoin or design, or have a certain tech savviness already. We're not making something for, I don't know, 11-year-olds or whatnot.
Yeah,
So,
I like
yeah,
using Hemingway a lot. But you have to, you got to use that like nuanced approach to it and not like take what it says as the truth. It's a tool to like flag if a sentence might be too complicated, but I have to remind myself when I'm using it that, I have to use my own judgment. It can flag issues for me, but ultimately I have to choose what the appropriate sentence is.
Yeah. So one thing I found interesting here is I went through both my Android and my iPhone, and I just listed out the top level features, accessibility features, and the list is pretty incredible. For iOS, I didn't even go into all of those sub options, but the stuff that's available for accessibility is pretty incredible. And there are a lot of things that I don't. I mean, some of stuff like mute all sounds, that's pretty obvious, right? But there are other things where they're interesting, like sticky keys, slow keys, bounce keys, time to take action on something. Jason, you had mentioned, I think, is it yesterday or today, a switch control, and I think you said it was pretty important.
I mean, switch controls are very important for folks with mobility disabilities because they may not be able to use gestures or a mouse. So they may be using some other sort of input device plugged into their phone. It could be something that's part of their advanced or their augmented communications device. It could be something that's connected to a wheelchair. It could be something that's connected to like a foot panel, foot pedal. It could be a sip and puff device, which is something for folks who may be paraplegic. So it could be any kind of number of input devices. And with mobile testing, there's the ability to turn on switch controls, which just basically gives you a single input as a control, which will allow you to like tap a button, and then it will logically go through, navigate through an app, for example, from left to right, top to bottom, or whatever order the elements in the app appear in the code. And then you can tap the button again and it will select that element. And then maybe you tap the button again after that, and then it will activate that element. So it's a really simple way for somebody with a mobility disability to use an input device.
Gotcha. So you basically only have one button available, and that's how you navigate the whole thing.
It could be a single button. It could be a dual button. I mean, there's a couple different setups there, but the idea is that you're minimizing the keystrokes and the types of gestures that need to be done, right?
Yep. I was just wondering how you'd navigate something like Snapchat, which is like swiping screens left and right, options all over the screen. And I'm sure a lot of it doesn't even make sense. I mean, what do you do with like putting stickers and scribbling on a screen? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I mean, that's why skip controls are really important too, right? So somebody that's using a keyboard only or using a switch control, if they're navigating a website and they have these huge mega menus that they have to get through to get into the main content of the page, if you have a skip content link, then they can quickly skip past all that stuff. Otherwise, they might get repetitive strain injury, hitting their switch control 100 times to get to the main content of the page every time. So,
yeah. But that's not so much an issue in mobile, right? It's more so on the web
Not as
where
much.
we're used to. I feel like on the web we kind of have the tendency to just fill the screen with navigations and repeat stuff. And on mobile we don't have the space, and so we're a little bit more efficient with repetition, which we should also do on desktop, I think. Yeah. Yeah, cool. So any other questions around this right now? Any topics you want to get into?
I'm a bit curious about hearing and how that's tested, because I find that a little bit interesting. How do you test for people who can't hear? What are some things that you can pay attention to?
Yeah, for that, I would just pay attention to any video and multimedia content that you might have in an application, and ensure that there is a text transcript, that there is captions, or that there is audio descriptions for folks that are blind that may have maybe some images that appear in a presentation that aren't fully described by the narrator, and you kind of need to know what those things are in order to understand the content. That's where an audio description come in, where it's like a narrated voice telling you what's going on the screen, right? Like if you watch like movies have audio descriptions quite often. If you buy like a new DVD, for example, you'll usually see there's an option to turn on audio descriptions. I recommend trying that next time you play a DVD and see if you can get that to work. But it's really interesting because it will describe what's going on in the scene, describe what's going on in the background, and then you'll hear the narration of the actors and the voice and things like that. But that's for folks that have hearing, they don't have vision. But for folks that don't have hearing or have low hearing, just ensuring that the volume controls are accessible first off is going to be very important, because they may have accommodation disability. They may have a mobility disability where they can't really use a mouse that well and have a hearing disability. May have an age-related disability that affects both. So those type of things, just ensuring that the audio control is accessible to the utmost of your ability, and then providing captions and or transcripts is going to be very important.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, and so we're around almost 50 minutes in. So I hope you got. I hope you're set up now, and you found that with just a couple taps you can test an app real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've done with that or Mo and I have done, is we would take these screenshots, like these here, and the good thing is that it also captures the labels, which is super handy for mocking things up. And then here are a few from Breeze, like here on the right. This is that little panel that I was not able to exit. And then here, there were several buttons. We can just take this screenshot here. We can go to the Breeze GitHub repo, say here, there you go. Please label these buttons or so. And I think that would be super awesome to do if we can just create. I mean, it might be easier to actually just go in and fix them and do a pull request. If it's like finding where that is and adding a tag and just calling it, adding share or so, we might be able to fix those things ourselves. And I think that'd be super cool. And if then we can have a list of apps, have a list of issues, and then just make things happen, I think that'd be a really good start. So it's something
that'd be very awesome.
It would be providing value for value, right? I mean, that's the way I see it. It'd be very helpful. Yeah.
I don't have a question, but I had an idea with the QR code thing. It seems like there's I almost feel like Bitcoin wallets are going to need some kind of custom thing built in for the screen readers and all that for the QR code, because if someone's relying on a screen reader to navigate the app, they need to know a couple things. One, they need to know that the QR code is there, so that if they want to receive money from somebody else, they can show the QR code to somebody. So they need to know that the QR code is there and what to do with the QR code. So there needs to be some instruction, I guess there somewhere that tells them what to do with the QR code without reading out the entire Bitcoin address or Lightning invoice, like with what happened when Mo said it, when Mo was testing it. At the same time, though, like you can imagine that there might be a scenario where they do want to know what that Bitcoin address is going to be. Like you might need to verify, oh, is this my address or something like that. So you do want an option to be able to read out the address, but addresses are freaking long. So it'd be real cool for screen readers if there was an option to read out like the first 6 digits and the last 6 digits of the address. So that way, if they just want to do a super quick verification of like to compare the address to something else, you could just, say, hey, tap address verification, and it just reads out, just a couple of digits. And then there should be the option to actually read out the full address if the user actually needs to know what the full address is. But those are 3 different things. So that's just what I was thinking about. There's 3 different functions. They need to know what to do with the QR code. They need to be able to verify like the last 6 of the address, and they need to be able to have the option to hear the whole address if they need to, and not have that be an automatic thing.
Yeah, for the QR code, there are some guidelines around that it's selectable and it has a text that says something like scan QR code to copy address or something like that. But the more important thing probably is to have backup options that you can use NFC or a share button or a copy, and that works too. So if you just can't do it work, whether you can't see it or whether your hand is shaky or whatever it is. Yeah, that's a good point about the address. If there's able to select the address, then go into it, and then be able to select segments potentially.
Yeah, and then just me thinking about it from like an HTML or React component perspective, you could totally have some markup that has like a button that allows you to, read out the last 4 of the address or something like that. Or maybe it's just like maybe the address, like the last 6 digits of it are contained within their own span that has like a title or label attribute on it or something like that, so that they can kind of tab between those elements or swipe between those elements or whatever. So I don't think it would be too crazy. It just might involve some kind of markup that's hidden to the normally abled users.
And that's a very Bitcoin thing that we can put on the accessibility page too, with recommendations, or on the whatever page is the most appropriate.
Yeah, exactly, because it's not the kind of thing that like Venmo or traditional fintech apps are going to have to deal with. It's Bitcoin specific.
I mean, there are in Europe, there are these IBAN numbers. You might have credit card numbers also, which are not as complex, but still.
Yeah, good point.
So something I found interesting with this text here: send more than 5,000. It says actually send more than 5328 sats and up to 3992062. It reads every character out individually. And to your point about grouping stuff, the Blue Wallet export screen, it reads the recovery phrase as a phrase, instead of allowing you to go through every single word. There's a whole bunch of stuff like that, but I don't know if people who rely on screen readers listen to it at 700 words per minute. Maybe they're fine with it.
Yeah, and they have ways to read word by word or read character by character. If you look at the documentation and voiceover and talkback, you find out how to increase and decrease the verbosity.
But can you do that on the fly when you'd say, "Hey, I've selected a paragraph here"?
You
just do this slower.
Yeah, folks who use screen readers every day, they're very adept at doing that.
Nice.
But there are standards for grouping things, right? And so if you're using a space to group things versus a comma, that could have a difference depending on how the screen reader interprets it.
Yeah, because I bet the screen reader would probably put like a pause in between them.
Yeah.
So, if you were coding that, you could put commas in span tags and apply a CSS class that hides it from sight, but is still visible to a screen reader. And maybe that would help pause it a little better. That's a good point, Jason, about the being able to go in word by word. One thing we need to be cautious of when we kind of open up issues and stuff on these repositories is like we need to make sure that like we're like that, you know, we've really studied that Apple document and we know all the gestures and swipes, and that because there could be things that like are actually working totally fine that we just don't know how to do because we're not as used to using assistive technology. But I think we're probably going to uncover probably more issues than false positives.
Yeah, you're right about that. Yeah, false positives are probably going to be more things like I don't know, being able to find headings and things like that. Some of the things are a little more complex, but like just being able to navigate through all the interactive elements. If you can't get to them, you know, it's probably an issue there with a 2-finger swipe or a single finger swipe.
You know, I feel like it might sound very simple. It's like, oh, just label a button or so. But I feel like the screen reader, it's like an API for the interface that then can be interacted with through 1,000 different devices and mechanisms and all kinds of options, right? So if that basic API of just going through things, selecting them, and kind of knowing what it is works, I feel like that's really powerful in enabling Braille keyboards or all kinds of other stuff. So it might sound simple to just add some labels, but I feel like it's a pretty powerful, pretty essential thing to do.
Yeah, agreed.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So, Felix, you're about to say something, I think.
Yeah,
What's up?
I'm not 100% confident if this is accurate, but I think if you have like labels that have emojis in front, you have like an emoji and then receive, for example, and you want to voice control that, you're not going to be able to because it's yeah, I don't know how to spell that emoji or like this like some ASCII character, right? Like I think this creates problems as well.
Yep.
I noticed.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it can be tricky.
So
You can
even if
label.
it's like okay, it says receive, but there's a dot at the end, or like there's like some weird character, like we should still change it just for the people who use voice control. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like my GitHub PR preview links are all not accessible. I put lots of emojis around them. Although I think they're around the links, not in the links.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. So there are a lot of topics. I mean, we're getting up to the hour. There are a lot of stuff we haven't covered at all. But I feel like even if we can just do this here, get some stuff out there, we'll have made some progress. And I would still love to find somebody who actually has these needs, and then just tell us how we're doing, how things are going, and then maybe hopefully after
I have some friends I could probably recruit, so I'll ask around.
That would absolutely be great, Jason. Much appreciated.
Yeah.
How do you find testers for what you do?
I mean, I was kind of lucky because I just landed in a pool of testers right out of college, working for a nonprofit that was doing this type of work for people with disabilities. So I have a lot of friends here in the disability community in Austin, Texas. Yeah, that's where my main pool is.
Awesome. Aren't there a whole bunch of Bitcoiners in Austin?
There are, yes.
People...
There's a couple blind ones actually.
Yeah.
Understatement, Christoph.
Hold on, Millie, were you in Austin at some point, or are you in Austin right now?
Yeah, right now I'm in California, but I'm going back to Austin mid-July. So yeah, I'm living in Austin.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I would love, I mean, if we get to a point where we need to test wallets with accessibility, I would love like to join your pool of testers, Jason, and see how this works. Because I feel there's a lot of stuff I need to learn to be able to understand it properly.
Yeah, I know one guy at the Austin Bit Devs meetup. He's been there the last few times I've been there. I'm trying to remember his name. I think it's Jonathan, but I'm not 100% sure. But regardless, he's a very avid fan of Bitcoin, and he's interested in all the new apps and technologies, and he's blind, so I think he would be an excellent person to do some testing with. And if you want to get together and meet up with this person sometime, I'd be happy to do that.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Super cool. Thanks, Mo. See you soon.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop the recording here now too. I feel like we covered it all, and we can just keep chatting here if we want to.